This episode of The Young Turks brought to you by Jack Threads for the win.
David Axelrod had a meeting with some progressive bloggers, and he wanted to reassure them on a couple of things. He said, look, we didn't talk about gun control. We didn't talk about the foreclosure crisis in the State of the Union, but trust us, that's coming up later. We will address those issues. Maybe not, right? It seems like he's trying to appease them. That's almost certainly what he's doing. But then the real relevant part of the conversation came in Social Security. They asked him about that because they said, you know, the president mentioned that he wanted to, quote, strengthen Social Security, but a lot of people think that that might be a code word for mess with it. And so they questioned him on that. And here's what Axelrod said, quote, in the long term, there are issues on the horizon relative to Social Security. Instantly, bloop, 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 bloop. Okay. Can you tell I don't have the sound effects here? But that's a warning sign saying that there are issues on the horizon, right? Among younger Americans, there's a profound suspicion that Social Security isn't even going to be there, he says. And among older Americans, there's a great deal of anxiety about tampering with it. Well, that last part is definitely true. And by the way, we all have anxiety about you tampering with it, old and young. He continued by saying, and our goal is to make sure that the program is still strong and secure. The president laid out his principles last night, and we're willing to have a discussion, but those principles are going to inform the discussion. So them saying, hey, we're willing to have a discussion on Social Security, that means we're open to changing it. Now, the reason Democrats have been so successful on this issue for so long is because the American people love Social Security, and they are not open to changing it. Every single poll shows that. There was a recent poll that showed that 85% of Americans say, I don't want to cut Social Security under any circumstance. But apparently David Axelrod, top political advisor to the president, doesn't know how to read polls, so he's open to discussing it. But he says, oh, but we want to make sure that it's strong and secure. Yeah. Look, the reason we think that's a euphemism is because whenever people talk about strengthening Social Security and making it more secure, they usually talk about, oh, no, we got to raise the retirement age or we got to cut benefits so that you can have it later, so that it lasts longer. When in reality, of course, it doesn't have any financial problems right now. It has a $2.5 trillion surplus, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't begin to run out of that surplus until 2037. It doesn't use up that surplus, I should say, until 2037. And then even then, it could pay 80%, even if you did nothing to Social Security. Why is there the need to panic about it now? There isn't, because they want to cut it. That's what the Republican agenda is, and we're afraid Obama's going to go along with it. And here's Axelrod's one more quote on it. He said, this is a delicate time, because I don't think you want to start pre-negotiating or pre-discussing issues to the point where people say, well, there's no point in even sitting down and talking about this stuff. In other words, yes, they're willing to cut Social Security, but they don't want to say it now because they'll take a lot of heat for it. What they're going to do is they're going to negotiate with the Republicans and then at the last second go, supplies, we agree to a compromise where we raise the retirement age. That's my guess. Look, I hope, again, for the millionth time, I hope I'm wrong, right? And I hope it's not the retirement age they're thinking of. I hope it's something else. For example, an easy so-called fix of Social Security, if you actually care to fix Social Security and it doesn't need much fixing, is that you can have payroll tax applied to higher brackets. Boom, fixed. You don't have to raise the retirement age at all. Now, we'll see. We'll see. Apparently, there was a news story about how liberal senators talked Obama out of putting it in the State of the Union, that he was willing to take measures to basically cut Social Security. Let's see if they talked him out of it for good. I talked to Bernie Sanders on air yesterday on MSNBC, and he said you have to keep applying pressure because there's no guarantee at all that he is going to say that he's not going to say raise the retirement age. That's what drives me crazy about Obama. His instincts seem to be like, oh, let me go to the right. Let me go to the right. So frustrating. Anyway, so be afraid. Be very afraid of what might happen to Social Security.
This episode of The Young Turks is brought to you by Jack Threads.